Whoop-de-doo! What does it all mean, Basil?
Hey, podcast listener, even if you are alone in your entrepreneurial journey, know that today, right now in your earbuds, you are joined by thousands of entrepreneurs from all around the globe seeking to grow better, more profitable, location-independent businesses. If you'd like to learn more about what we do and download our entire back catalog, check out TropicalMBA.com.
So in a nice bit of serendipity, I was in Singapore last week, and my friend John McIntyre was there. Some of you may know John. He launched one of his businesses on the Tropical MBA podcast. It's a business that helps entrepreneurs with email marketing and autoresponders. He's the autoresponder guy. He didn't want to talk about autoresponders when we caught up. He wanted to talk about, what do you do when you've gotten through those first few years of running a business? You've survived and you can go where you want. You kind of own your time. I know it's a high quality problem, but a lot of people have the problem. They're like, what do I do now? That's what this episode is going to be about. Now, don't worry, I pushed John for some details later on in the episode. It's not going to be all philosophical. We're going to talk about scale in year 3 of a productized service business. And we're also going to talk about some stories of life in Chaing Mai. This one should be a pretty relaxing one. If you want to join the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. All the links from my previous episodes with John and related topics will be at TropicalMBA.com/meeting.
I think it's something that I've been struggling with, and a lot of people I've seen struggle with, is this idea of when you start, you read the 4-hour work week, and you think that, I think we all think this, I know I did, it's sort of like an unconscious thing, that when I get there, when I have a business, that means I can quit my job, live anywhere in the world I want, whether it's Thailand or Sydney or Hong Kong or Singapore, and just do all those things, like take as much time off as you want, relax, have fun, do all those things. You get there, you think it's going to make you happy, but then you actually arrive there, and it's a bit like, well, I'm happy, and this is fun and stuff, and life's great, don't get me wrong. I don't want to get back to work. I don't want the job. But you realize that all you really created is a platform on which to do something interesting with. You haven't actually done anything interesting yet.
All your work's still ahead of you.
Exactly.
You mentioned that you're going to the U.S. for business opportunities. This is something that people talk a lot about when you kind of, you go to the small pond, hang out with a bunch of maybe internet marketers who are making a couple bucks on the webs, and you feel like maybe you've reached your ceiling there. There's a lot of multimillionaires that live in Chaing Mai too. It's not just the stereotype.
There's this question here of, when you read the 4-hour work week, the aspiration is to get to a point where you don't really have to work, more or less, or 4-hour work week thing. And then you realize, when I think about, I guess I've been getting more philosophical about the whole thing, thinking, once you get the money and the freedom, then it's like you have a platform to do whatever you want with life. So the question is, it's not really, should you go bigger? It's more like, all right, well, the question is now, this is really, how do you be happy? How does it mean to live a great life? And all the people I know who work the least, they're never happier. It's not like they're worse off, but they're not exponentially better off than someone who has to work a lot. The people who are the happiest and the most excited to be, alive and just having a great time, that's the sort of person I want to be, they often work really hard.
Yeah.
Usually it's because they're not really in it for the money, because they either have the money already or they just don't care about the money. But they're doing something they care about, some sort of mission or quest or something like that. So that's when you realize, when you have the money and the freedom, you realize that the money doesn't actually it gives you a platform that satisfies some kind of material needs. It doesn't give you the answer. It doesn't give you enlightenment. There's more to life. So when I think about that, it's not about going to the US for, say, going big or doing business. It's more like, what's more interesting? Staying in Thailand, because I could do this for the rest of my life. Be one of those retiree guys and get married and have 20 kids and just stay in Thailand forever. And I'd have that dream lifestyle for the next 60 years. But that sounds kind of boring. It's fun for a year. And it's like, all right, what's next?
Right.
So, yeah.
I think a lot of us, the challenge or the appeal of the perpetual travel lifestyle, it's a challenge, a quest in and of itself just to get there. I saw in the forum the other day, someone posted that the theme of 2015 might be home basing. A lot of people, they're reverting. It's the grass is greener. You got a home, you got a home base, and you're forced to be there. You want to live the perpetual lifestyle and kick the can down the road. You're visa hopping for 3 years, and you're thinking, wow, it'd be really great to have a big screen TV with a pool table in the basement.
Mm-hmm. You want another thing, right? This whole 4-hour work week, this digital nomadism, there's a bit of a cult going on where everyone's glorifying business, glorifying entrepreneurship as though entrepreneurs are God's gift to man. That's kind of once, when you haven't done it or when you were new to it, maybe that's how it's easy to think like that. But then you do it for a while and you're like, it's just a different way to live.
I thought it'd be cool here to take a step back, actually, and sort of recap where John's come from, because he's tracked pretty nicely with this, start a productized service thing, like learn a skill the first year, sell the skill the second year, and scale it in the third year. We're going to talk about his story of scale later on, but I think it'd be cool if he sort of rewound the clock. And if you remember, I used to actually still do these things where my friend has a resort in the Philippines and he needs some WordPress support. So we basically made this deal where you could come to the resort. I mean, we've done this probably 8 times. You can check out TropicalMBA.com and see how it works. But people live in the resort for free, basically, and they provide a couple hours of support daily and just sort of be the resident smart person. I still remember the first time I talked to John on the phone because I got about, it was early days, so I probably only got 23 applications and didn't really find anyone I really liked. And I remember John applied late and he was like, hey, would you still consider me? And I was like, would you still jump on the phone with me? And I knew right away, within a few minutes of talking, that John was the guy. So we're going to sort of rewind time a little bit and hear how it all came together.
So I was in Sydney, got this shady deal. I didn't actually think it was shady at the time. I think my family did, but I just was like, screw it, I'm going to do it. The alternative was, well, not TPS reports, but was going to an office each day. So to me, it was easy. Bought a one-way ticket, went to the Philippines, met you guys, had a blast. But what I had was a site that was making, say, $400 a month online with...
That's right, the juicing site.
The juicing site.
So you had some knowledge of web development and of affiliate marketing and stuff like that. You were basically trying to sell juice recipes.
Yeah, more or less. Pretty exciting stuff. It's big business. $400 a month worth. And sold that.
So you were the typical digital nomad, with a niche site about random topic that you more or less could give a shit about. Yeah. And trying to turn that 400 into 4,000.
Trying to. But then remember how I arrived, and there was a Google update, one of those Panda updates, destroyed the site. So it went from $400 a month is not a lot, but it went down to $100 a month. I lost 75% of my big income in a day. So the week after I got there to set on this new adventure and this shady deal in the Philippines, I lose 75% of that monthly revenue. And then it's scary. So that was kind of where it started. And then I tried a few things. And eventually wound up writing copy. There was a day when you were in the Philippines. It was from one of those, you did a couple little seminars at this resort, Badlands, in the Philippines. Yeah. And I was sitting there and I had a pen and paper and I was writing out some sales letters, some advertisements from 1950 on a pen and paper. Yeah. And you came over and you were like, what the hell are you doing, man? It was crazy. You got a computer. What are you writing that down for? And so we started talking about copy, right?
Gave you some psychological bullshit about you remember it more and all. You really bought in, man.
I totally bought in. It works, Sold you on it. And then eventually it wound up being email, and then you said, well, I need some emails for the Tropical MBA. Yeah. So can you write some emails? You were like, I'll give you a couple $100. I'm like, dude, what? I couldn't believe that anyone would pay to have me write them emails. Because then it was we did that, wrote the emails. You paid, I think it was $200 at the time. Got 10 emails. We set that up. Worked really well. You asked me to do a little presentation on the email stuff. And then afterwards, you got everyone to be like, all right, before John goes, put your hand up if you'd pay $500 for this. And a whole bunch of people put their hands up. And then you started asking, how much would you actually pay? And Joe Bauer put his hand up and said, $1,500 would be a no-brainer. And so that was started clicking where it's it doesn't actually matter. The price of what I charge, this is where it all started, doesn't actually matter as long as I'm making someone more than that. And after that, we all went down and sat down for dinner. And I think I had a conversation with Joe and we did some stuff way down the line. I got 3 clients out of that. That's what kickstarted the whole thing and led to the whole autoresponder guy thing. And
yeah. So it's interesting to note about the story. That's where a lot of people crack up because you were 9 months on the island with no income. And it wasn't like you're a dumb guy. You had previous experience and you're really smart and you're working really hard. So just to put it into context how difficult these things can be. You know what I mean? Especially for people with not a lot of business experience or a network of business relationships already in place from, say, a previous career or whatever. Yeah. So you were, 22 at the time?
I arrived, just turned 21.
So you're 9 months in. You're almost about ready to crack up.
Oh, I was almost out of money. I checked my bank account because I did this for a talk recently. I had $100 left at one point. But it was hard for a while. I remember I got depressed because I feel like it was the location independent job. And not I was earning a lot of money. I couldn't have gone back to Sydney and done it because, I'd be scraping to get by in Sydney. Right. Or back then. That's why I was in the Philippines. I bought a one-way ticket there. It wasn't like I was going to go there for 4 months or 6 months and try it out and then come back. Yeah. It was like, I'm just going to make this happen. If I fuck this whole thing up, I'm not going to die at least. Worst case scenario is I end up stranded on some Filipino island on a beach somewhere. Like, what's the big deal about that? I can swim every day. Right? But then it's kind of like having that commitment really works. And then it's kind of like, well, I'm in Thailand, and as annoying as it gets sometimes, back then, trying to do the client work myself, doing the calls, having people negotiate me down, all the issues that come with that stage of the game, it was never an issue of like, oh yeah, I'll just go back and get a job now. Because even if it was a location independent job, it was still location independent, and I was still in Thailand.
Yeah.
And I knew it's very much that process side of it, was, because I have people that talk about this, I don't want a job, you're not really location independent, or you're not really an entrepreneur if you don't have like a proper business that can last without you. Which are all valid points, but it's kind of, well, this is a spectrum we're talking about.
Yeah.
And sort of to get to the one side of the spectrum, or the end where you have the business and you can travel and you can take time off and you can disappear for 6 months, how do you get there?
You're writing $1,000 autoresponders.
Yeah.
How much money are you making at this point, and how do you push through to the point where you've got what you've got now, where it's like you've got a membership site, you're paying people to write your autoresponders for you, you're focused on relationships, creating and connecting. How did you get through that year, that dip year?
Well, it's funny, because we met up in Hong Kong 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
Because I was actually working on a different business. I partnered up with a guy and we're going to run this supplement business. After it was 3 or 4 months doing that, I put all the marketing stuff on hold and went to work with him, and it just didn't work out in the end. So we both went our separate ways, and then I went back to the marketing thing. And at first it was like, I almost ran out of money again. Right. It's kind of, I'm in Thailand and I'm almost running out of money. That was kind of like another big, oh shit. But then it was kind of like, it goes back to that attitude of like, well, I'm going to make it happen. If it all goes belly up, which it won't. This is the thing about client business, is the worst thing that happens is you don't make much money 1 month. You don't have payroll to meet. So it's not like you're going to go bankrupt. You can't really go bankrupt.
Right.
So in that sense, it didn't really matter that it got low.
You could go to mom's couch.
You could.
Or a friend's couch. That's sort of the backstop.
I prefer the beach in the Philippines, man.
Yeah. Beach in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Dining off of
no
fallen
Wi-Fi
coconuts.
There's those deep fried fish that they got in the Philippines.
It's really good.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Those eyeballs, man.
We talk about this with a joke, like, hey, John could have gone back to mom's couch, but it's actually something, we talk about a lot on the Tropical MBA podcast, which is limiting your downside, especially limiting your expenses. And for a lot of us in this community, places like beaches in the Philippines, places like Chaing Mai, Thailand, aren't only really cool places to explore and to have sort of a life adventure in, but they're also really practical in terms of baselining your expenses, getting them as low as possible, and focusing your energy on growing the skill set that you can eventually build a profitable business around. So, John did that in both the Philippines and Chaing Mai. So I thought I'd ask him a couple questions about his experience in Chaing Mai.
We talked about this a second ago, right? That Chaing Mai, you came there and like, this isn't a very sexy place. No. There's no beach. There's not really much of a nightclub scene. Like, there's nothing that exciting going on in Chaing Mai.
Yeah.
I think that's why I like it. Because it's like when I turned up there in October 2012, that was just after I'd left the Philippines after the TropicalMBA internship, the gig there. And so I was fresh. I wasn't making much money. I had to, be careful. And so I ended up in Thailand, and I knew that I wasn't ready to go and travel and party and do all that yet. I needed to like batten down the hatches. And Chaing Mai just happened to be, because originally I went there, I was thinking, I'll stay here for a month or two. I didn't even know what's next. And then 3 years went by. Was it 3 years this year sometime? It's just so easy to live. It's not sexy, but like when I was there, I just left. I had a luxury apartment in the best part of town. We had an office. I lived 1 minute from the office. I've got all sorts of Western food, super healthy stuff, all within a 1 minute place from where I live. The gym's around the corner. I've actually gotten into motorcycles. I love, like on weekends, going and renting a big ass motorcycle and taking off into the mountains with some friends. Whether it's like on the road, instead of just kicking along way too fast because there's not really any speed limits in Thailand. Or last week, Ben Krueger, right? So we got a couple bikes and James Ferriss. We grabbed a couple dirt bikes, went up to Pai. So Pai's 3 hours from Chaing Mai. So off into the jungle, single trail dirt bikes, like downhill mountain bike, except you're going uphill. And it's kind of like having a downhill bike, but it's got a bigger level. It's not huge, but there's an engine on it. That's fun. It's like that kind of stuff, man. Like that's what Chaing Mai's great for that. There's no beach, but there's motorcycles.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, because I live in a very uneventful place as well. And, we're here in Singapore, all the crazy, flashy things.
There's Ferraris, man.
There's Ferraris everywhere. Singapore's the kind of place where you can just, it sort of quietly robs you. You know what I mean? It's like, look at all the pretty buildings and then you're broke. That's my experience in Singapore. But some places look really good on paper, and then you don't feel great when you're there. That's one thing that I've noticed is like, wow, such and such a place has everything going for it. It's affordable, great rents, lots of entrepreneurs there. And then you're there and you find yourself getting on an airplane every 3 weeks. For me in particular, I think this is an interesting thing about being location independent is I don't really like living in cities. I love going to cities, and I understand why people live in cities. Access to the strange, access to cool concerts. You can kind of travel without traveling. But once you can travel, I find myself living in exceptionally boring places. I don't know.
I mean, you're playing basketball. That's the main thing, right?
So as someone who's in year 3 of this, first year baseline and learn, second year sell and hustle, and third year you scale that productized service business, I asked John if that is tracking with his experience and what he's doing to try to achieve that scale.
But in the sense of so I was doing $1,000 autoresponders. Working with the guy lately to kind of look at it so I can take my skills and take, say, an autoresponder, some sort of email campaign, and plug that into someone who's doing 6 figures online, $100,000 a year, for example. And the autoresponder, it's going to make them a little bit of money. It might make a couple grand in the next year, for example. But let's say I go take that to a mortgage company, and the mortgage company's spending $10,000 a day buying leads.
Right.
$300,000 a month just on acquiring email addresses. And then I say, here's this campaign. It's the same thing as a 10 email autoresponder, but they're already spending $10,000 a day. So if they're buying that many leads and I can plug in 6 emails that actually work and that convert them, because they have the volume, they can potentially make, if they're saying $300,000 a month, I might be able to create for them $600,000 a month in profit with a campaign. So then it's what's that campaign worth? They'd laugh at me if I told them $1,000, right? So it's all right, well, if we're looking at $600,000 profit, how about $30,000 to set the whole thing up? And it's 6 emails. So where my skill comes in is knowing where the profit really is in this industry.
And these new sorts of end users that you're plugging your stuff into, are they listening to podcasts? Are they coming through your thing, or you have to change that strategy?
The strategy needs to change. I get them occasionally coming to the site through the podcast. I hate that word, but the whole brand isn't built around corporates and big companies. Yeah. So they are there. I had one of the biggest car dealerships in Canada come to me. It was a mortgage company. That's why I thought of them. They're from the US somewhere, mortgage, yeah. So there's these interesting people that come. But yeah, to really do that properly, consistently, I need to have some sort of process. That's what I'm working on right now. The question is you do all this, right? You get to this point and then you're all right, business is good. I don't need to work that much. I can chill out, hang out in Singapore and do a little bit of work, whatever. You just live what you want. And then it's all right, what's next? Yeah. That's the question that no one really talks about. No one really answers it either.
That's where the most profitable business of all time comes in. I mean, there's a lot of people that are in the meaning business, I suppose.
Well, I don't mean the meaning. So I mean more the question is how do you create meaning in your life? Because after you've got the freedom, then it's all right, well, what are you, it's not even just that whole, what are you passionate about? It's almost, I think it's just interesting. What do you mean most excited to just do every day? Because playing video games every day is not that fun. For me, I think about it'd be fun to go and just do bigger stuff, not to go and become a billionaire, for example, but just to go do stuff to do it, And the reason, I initially emailed you 2 weeks ago saying it was a book called Bold, right, by Peter Diamandis. Yeah. And it's all about these, he calls them exponential technologies. It's very hypey and marketery and whatever. Yeah. But it's interesting to think about in the sense that I like this idea of our brains are terrible at understanding linear versus exponential. Correct. So in the 30 linear steps is 30 meters, right? If you take a meter and just times it by 30, you get to 30 meters. Sure. If you take a meter and double it 30 times, do you know how far it is? But sorry, you can go to the sun and back 3 times. The idea is, I think, what's interesting about it is that we don't understand the opportunities that we have. And the equivalent of this is John McIntyre from 5 years ago, partying too much and working a crappy job in Sydney. He didn't know that it was as simple as building a site and just sticking with it for 3 years. And if he did, maybe he would have gotten started earlier. But he didn't get that while it's really slow for the first year, it actually starts to pick up in speed in the second year. And then in the third year, it picks up a lot quicker after that. Yeah. So we just aren't wired for that exponential thinking. So, and I've seen that, when I look back at my own life, there's been times when I haven't been able to properly predict how fast things actually happen once you build up some momentum. That's what's exciting. It's all right, so what could you kind of do with your life and kind of just more interesting stuff? In this book, Bold, he talks about space, 3D printing, all this kind of stuff. Apparently I was chatting to a guy today from Australia, 250 grand gets you into the rocket business.
Rockets.
You know what he says? He goes to a fucking bar and tries to meet a girl. And the girl, I think he was so what do you do? He's I build spaceships.
That works. That's got to work.
And the other guy's to him, yeah, I'm a vampire. No one believes him. But that's as 250 grand will get you into the business of putting rockets to get into space. Right. You can put a satellite up. You say, you can build how much do you think you can put a satellite into space for?
No idea.
$5,000. And it's not going to do much. It's going to go up there and beep and tell you it exists. But it's still there, right? So you start playing around with it. We think it's way off, these flying cars, and maybe some of it is way off. But at the same time, the way the exponential thing works is we're not going to linearly, that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, make our way to these points. Sure. It's going to happen faster and faster and faster. This is where there's a lot of money in it, but there's also, it just sounds like a lot of fun. It's like a video game, you know?
So you're just trading in real video games for something that approximates the experience but is more profitable.
Well, because like it's kind of once you get the freedom, you got the money. It's like, all right, what are we going to do now? You've met all your material needs. We both don't need a Ferrari. We don't really care for it. It looks nice.
Yeah.
Great to have one. But it'd be a pain in the ass to park, right? So we don't want it. It's just what's more interesting. So it's like a video game, man. Just life is a game. I like that.
I think we don't know. John McIntyre, come back in a year, buddy. We want to see where you're at. Hopefully, space.
It's rockets, man. I'm going to be on Mars. We'll do the podcast via Skype right from Mars. You know? Something to aim for.
Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom.
So what are you doing for meaning? Have you achieved location and time independence, relatively speaking? We'd love to hear your opinions. Not only that, but we'll have all the previous episodes related to this topic and the discussion at TropicalMBA.com/meaning.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Tropical MBA podcast. You can go to TropicalMBA.com, get access to hundreds of back episodes and all kinds of other goodies. Load up your iPod. That is the cheapest way to fly business class on your next international flight. We will see you next Thursday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.